I am in New York City at the Comic-Con at Javits Convention Center 2016, talking to my friend and science fiction master, John Scalzi.
Hello.
Hello, John.
Hi, how are you?
Very good, how are you?
Life is good.
Yeah?
I'm not going to lie.
Tell me what's going on.
Well, literally 2 days ago, just before I got on the plane to come here, I finished writing my new book, which is called The Collapsing Empire.
Excellent.
So that was a load off my mind. And then 2 days before that, The Dispatcher, which is a audio novella that's coming out through Audible, came out. So it's been a pretty eventful week for me. I mean, it's a good week, but a lot going on.
Now, Comic-Con is a place where it's this deep celebration of nerd culture and all sorts of different franchises, and you, as a creator of franchises, you must have a particular relationship to the Comic-Cons and the fans that come here.
Well, you know, it's one of those things where you literally go into one and you are just surrounded, right? And I mean, not in a sort of, oh no, what's going on way, but it's amazing that so many people love so much that so many other people have done.
Right.
You know, that it is literally a celebration of your favorite things, their favorite things, everybody's favorite things. And just to see people coming out and saying, yes, this is what I love, or these are the creators who've meant that much to me. And to have it on such a huge scale, like there are going to be probably about 140,000 people here at New York Comic Con. Just to have it on that immense scale is both amazing and to the extent that it involves you at all, kind of humbling.
Do you get recognized when you walk the floor here?
Yes, I do.
A lot.
I do, and it's kind of fun because, you know, out in the real world, nobody cares.
Right.
You know. Right? But you come to a place like Comic-Con or another convention and people come up and go, oh my God, are you John Scalzi? To which I get to say my line, yes, I hope so, I'm wearing his underwear. And then they go off and they talk to you about the books and they want to know.
Line.
Yeah, thank you. I practiced it. But they want to know about what's coming up. They want to tell you what they've enjoyed before. Sometimes they want to say what they didn't like, which is okay too, because mostly they're like, I love everything but this, and let me tell you why. And you can totally go with that because nobody loves everything. So.
Yeah.
But overall, it's just great to have people like know who you are and what you do, and then it's nice to go back into the real world and have nobody care.
And you've been to many different cons. You've been to San Diego. You've been to Dragon Con.
Sure.
Do you find the different cons that the attendees of different cons appreciate different works or genres or franchises of yours?
I find, yeah, kind of. I mean, when it's this large, when it's something on the size of New York or San Diego or Dragon Con, you'll get the whole range, right? You know, and people will come up and go, "Oh, Man's War, when's the new installment?"
Yeah.
Or they'll have, and another person will come up and say, "Lock-in, when's the new installment?"
Yeah.
So it does vary. There's not a lot of regional difference, I think, at least with my stuff. But when I go to smaller conventions, the ones that are like mainly literature centered, then I'll have the people who will go on expansively about the entire, breadth of my stuff, and that's kind of interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and it's weird to know this, like to know that there are people out there who have literally read every single thing that you've ever written and have opinions on it. Adam.
So, how you must have had meetings about turning stuff of yours into television and movies. Forgive my ignorance, but has stuff that you've written been turned into a film or television show?
Not yet. Right now we currently have 4 things that are under option and that are being developed.
Okay.
Including Old Man's War, which is the one that everybody asks about, and which makes sense.
Yeah.
And that is still in process. We're at a point where we have the second draft of a pilot script, and now we just have to see where things go from there. Red Shirts is currently under development. We have a project that I've not turned into a book yet, but which is now currently being developed into a TV series, so it'll be a race to see whether it becomes a book first or a TV series first, and then some other stuff as well. So
I think that people don't realize how much authors work in many different ways on different ideas.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that Seven Eves came about after Neil Stephenson had pitched it as a video game, a movie, a television show, and then he thought, screw it, I'm going to write this myself.
Right. Well, no, and that's exactly it. I mean, I recently signed a contract with Tor for 10 books 13 books, and 5 of those books were ideas that I pitched to studios as movie or TV ideas.
Right.
And they were all, we love it, we love it, we love it, we don't have a spot for it. And I'm like, well, all right, well, if you're not going to do it, then I'm going to write it as a book, and then you'll just come back around again and want to option it later. That's fine.
So red shirts.
Yes.
I feel like red shirts has a particular resonance in a place like this.
Yes.
As delving deep into fan culture and then deeper
Right.
into it's real, it's part of alternate universes. Have you run into people dressed as characters from your book?
I have seen people walking around with Universal Union t-shirts. The Tor, my publisher, did a whole bunch of t-shirts earlier, like 2 or 3 years ago when it first came out, and so I still see people walking around doing that, or they will come up and tell me what their favorite character is, or they'll die in front of me.
Oh, nice!
Which I've literally had happen a couple of times, and of course you were like, very good death, well done, very dramatic. You made your moment here, and of course that's what they want. You know,
totally awesome.
They don't want their death to have been completely in vain.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I've had people who have been characters from Old Man's War, with the green skin and all that sort of stuff. And
that must be really satisfying to see their take on it.
It is awesome because I purposely do not go into great description about much of anything, and so when people come up and they say this is from your book, I'm like, okay, because now I have a concrete idea of what you think this book was about,
right,
or what these people look like, and it's awesome, and it's also just sort of like, and that's one of the things that really makes you know that something you've done is really penetrated deep into somebody's like self.
Right. You realize how much time they spent thinking about it and dialing in and making decision.
Exactly. So it's the costumes, the tattoos, because I've seen people come in and they're like, here's my Old Man's War tattoo, where they've done the cover, to Old Man's War, and you're like, that is going to be on your body forever. I hope you don't ever start to hate me. Right? Because that could happen. Totally. He was just like, well, I love this book, but then he started, phoning it in. And
has no one done any of the aliens from Old Man's War?
I get a whole bunch of fan art of this is what I think the aliens look like. And that is really cool, because once again, I don't give a lot of description. So they're like, is this right? And I'm like, it's right for you. And now, and it's great for me because I have in my head like what I think, like the Kansu, who are the badass aliens in Old Man's War. I know what they look like in my brain. And when fan art comes in and I look at it, I'm like, that is so much cooler than I had in my brain. I'm going to adopt that now.
So you remember the sort of Beatles from The Dark Crystal?
Yeah.
I think of your aliens looking slightly like them, but kind of shiny blue and white and silver.
You're not wrong. The way that I tend to think about it, which should not be considered canonical, please continue doing what you want to do with them, is that they look like ladybugs, but when they open from the front, and then they just have big scythes for arms.
Terrifying.
Right, exactly.
Terrifying.
You're like, they could be cute, and then here they are slicing you up. But in my brain, it's just super basic. Right. And like I said, so then people come up and they're like, here's what the Kansu look like to me, and they're tall, and they've got these arms that look like spikes, and they put so much more thought into it than I did when I was writing it. And I feel almost sort of bad, it's like, that I really wish I had put more thought into it. But then again, that was sort of the point. I do purposely leave things nebulous so that people, when they go, what is this like? They get to have the fun of creating the world along with me.
Right.
I mean, that's actually really important to me as a creator.
And I think people don't realize that the fandom here vends over the creators, because people wear costumes from your books and things that had never been drawn out before.
Right.
They might have an effect on the way you write about that in the future. And they're helping to inform just that level of decision making.
Right. Well, not only that, but when they come up and they say, well, I have questions about this, or why didn't you do that? And sometimes what I find out with that is the thing that I thought I got away with, I didn't get away with it. I had to write an entire additional book in the Old Man's War universe because I didn't answer a couple of questions, and every single time in the last colony, it's like, what happened to the werewolves? Where did that machine come from that let them win? And I realized that I couldn't just leave those hanging around.
Right.
So I had to go to Tor, and it's like, I need to write another book. And they're like, well, okay. And so is Zoe's tale answered. What happened to the werewolves?
Right.
What happened? How did she acquire that machine? So the fact that the fans were so invested in the world is a direct cause of that book existing.
So this has always been true, but perhaps it's now much more visible in a place like this.
Yeah.
But the line between the consumer and the producer is a very blurry line.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean this is what makes fans fans. They take ownership of the things that they love. And sometimes it can be problematic when they, when they get so possessive that they don't want to share it with other people, or they don't want to share it with other people who they don't think love it as much as they do.
Right.
But that's like a 1% of the time. The vast majority of the time, it's really cool. I mean, as a creator, two things happen. One, you know that they want you to keep going on,
right.
Which we're neurotic people, right? The fact that they want, it's like, do it again. Do this, makes you feel good. But the other thing is that, like I said, I leave spaces for fans to inhabit, and where they inhabit tells me in some ways where I need to go with that story.
Well, and there's a thing that typifies your writing that I really enjoy about it.
Yeah.
It's maybe the thing I enjoy most is that you love your characters and you want them to have the best.
Yes.
They might not always get exactly there, but they're going to get their just desserts. And they're going to be rewarded for being good people eventually.
I am strangely moral that way. I don't know how that happened. But it is true. The thing about science fiction is we like to say science fiction is the literature of ideas. But what the thing is you can have the best idea in the world, the coolest idea, but if you don't have people who are interesting, who are directly affected by it, who have a crisis of some sort or another because of it, then what do you have?
Right.
You just have a cool idea. Cool idea. Here's the thing about ideas. People are like, where do you get your ideas? It's like, ideas are not that hard to find. It is developing them and making them real through what characters have to deal with because of the ideas that make them stick in people's minds.
Right. That make them part of their lives, part of the narrative in their head.
Right. And because people, it's one thing to think about ideas. It's another thing entirely to think about the lives of the characters and their lives having been changed, and by that extension, your life being changed in one way or another. It happened to me as a reader. All the characters that I loved, all the books, all the movies, all the TV series, where you come away, going, well, that was a cool idea, but what was even cooler is what Spock did with that.
Right.
So, you carry that forward.
Last question.
Okay.
Would you ever consider coming to a con dressed as one of your characters? And if so, who?
Wow. I'm here in a red shirt, so that may count. But I think I would be interesting to come as John Perry, who is the protagonist of Old Man's War, but come as him as an older person. One, it would be very subtle.
Right, very, yeah.
But second of all, the people who recognized what I was doing, those would be the people I know. It's like, you've been paying attention to my series, haven't you?
The deep geeks.
The deep Scalzi geeks. And so I think maybe doing that, because I can't come back as the young one now.
No.
I've got that bald spot.
None of us can.
It's too late for us now.
John, thank you so much for sharing with us out here on the floor, and I'm really glad you just finished another book, because I read all your books last year and I need some more.
Well, that's coming. March 17th.
A pleasure.
Pleasure to see you.